Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition on Lunchtime Learnings. I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Tessa Shepperson, who is and owns the Landlord Law Services Ltd, which is a landlord law online service. Provides loads of online and face-to-face training for landlords and other property professionals, both in the private and social sector. So thank you very much, Tessa, for joining me this afternoon. I'm really grateful. So
it's a pleasure.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up doing this and getting involved with landlords?
Well, I should say, first of all, that I'm a solicitor. But
Okay.
when I was at school and university, I didn't think I was going to be a solicitor. I thought I was going to be a geography teacher.
Okay.
And then I went to Durham University to do teacher training, and I discovered I wasn't very good at teaching 13-year-olds how to about geography. So I sort of left and thought, blimey, what am I going to do? And I discovered at that stage, because to get a job or to earn an income, you've got to have some sort of skill. You've got to be able to do something that people want. And a geography degree, I discovered, wasn't really what people wanted. So I sort of did what a lot of girls do at that stage, is I did a secretarial course. So at least I'd be able to earn an income. And that year was actually really important for the rest of my life, because first of all, I learned how to touch type. And I do a lot of writing, and that was really important. And secondly, there was a law course on it. And I'd never studied law. I didn't know anything about it. And I realized that I really enjoyed law. I thought it was fascinating. So I thought, right, this is what I'm going to do. So I went back down to London to my parents, and I did the London External Law degree, which took me 5 years. And I then did my solicitor's training. I had to pay for this myself, although this was a long time ago. So I did get a grant for the solicitor's course. And I then did articles, as we called it then, with a firm in Norwich, where I am now. And then after about 4 years, I was sitting in front of the fire one evening, and I suddenly became convinced that I was going to be made redundant. You know, the way you do, you have these sort of panic attacks in the night. I thought, what would I do if I was made redundant? So the idea came to me to set up my own business. And to start with, I thought, don't be stupid. I can't do that. And then I thought, well, there is another lady I knew called Sally Lane, who ran her own solicitor's practice. And I went and saw her. And she was really, really encouraging to me. And in the end, I did set up my own solicitor's firm. I practiced as a sole practitioner solicitor. But at my other firm, I'd done mostly sort of property work. So I kind of carried on doing that. And one of the things that I'd done was a lot of eviction work for landlords. And I also did legal aid as well. And then I decided to stop doing legal aid because it all got a bit difficult. And I decided to focus on work for landlords and sort of widen my area of sort of practice, which meant the internet. And this was the time of the dot-com bubble. And I got this idea to set up this website, because I realized that a lot of landlords don't really know what their legal rights and obligations are. So I got this idea to set up this website so people could pay for access, and they would find all the answers there. And the pay for access would allow me to maintain the website. And this was the time of the dot-com bubble. And I remember thinking, am I bonkers setting up an internet business at the time of the dot-com bubble, But I did it because a lot of the people in the dot-com bubble, they were a bit stupid about it. They thought because it was online, they didn't have to worry about things like marketing. But I did do it properly. So I set it up, and it's been fantastic. It's been fantastic for me, the website, and it's also been fantastic for the members, because it's not as expensive as using a solicitor. But they get access to me, and they can ask me questions on the forum. So they get proper solicitor's advice, but they don't pay the solicitor's fees. And I've got all sorts of other things there. It started off just being written information. And then over the years, because I've been doing it for over 20 years now, I started it up in 2001. And over the years, people have asked for different things. So people asked for tenancy agreements, so I put tenancy agreements there. And people asked for a forum, so I had the forum there. And I've also got a guide for landlords to evict tenants, because to start with, I ran it in conjunction with my solicitor's practice. And then the website service was so successful, and it's such a hassle running a solicitor's business. You know, there's all these things you have to comply with. I thought, why am I bothering this? Why don't I just do the website? So I closed down the solicitor's practice, and I just do the Landlord Law website now, and it's been fantastic. It really has, and I've got a very loyal set of members. I mean, some people have been with me for practically the whole of the journey. I've got some people still who joined, you know, in the early noughties. So yeah, it's been great. So that's how I got to where I am now.
Good, brilliant. Well, look, I'm going to pick up on some of the things that you said there. I mean, I can understand why people are so loyal to you, because I've been following you for about 7 or 8 years. And you give such great content, really add values. And I know at the moment that you've got some email series of 20 tips that are going up, going out, I think, on a weekly basis, which are really more regularly, which are really helping people and add value. So I can see that the value you provide to all the landlords on the forum is absolutely incredible on your website. So thank you for that, and thank you for what you share. But just coming back and picking up on you starting your own business, because there's going to be people watching this thinking, oh, don't want to start my own business. It's a bit of a scary place to be. What lessons did you learn from actually starting from your business? And if you were going back and starting it today, what would you have done differently?
I don't know whether I've had the courage to do it today. I mean, I resigned from a really good assistant solicitor's job to set up my own business with no clients and an overdraft. I mean, in a way, I was mad, but I was very lucky. But I think in a way you make your luck, because there was another solicitor who we were sort of friends. I think he was in a bit of a bad place, and I sort of talked to him, and we, you know, I sort of encouraged him, and you know, we sort of became friends. And after I set up, he referred some work to me. And that was actually really important at the start of the business, keeping me going. And I think possibly if I hadn't been so nice to him, you know, he might not have referred the work to me. So I think often you do make your own luck by what you do. You know, if you're really nice to people and not horrible to people, they're more likely to be nice to you. And I think that's quite an important lesson.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's one thing I say. Be nice, don't be horrible, and be sort of generous in sharing. Because I always now, over the years, I've had a lot of solicitors come to me who've been thinking about setting up their own website, their own solicitors business, and I've always sort of encouraged them. Because when I was thinking of it, Sally encouraged me. You know, it's like you pass it on, don't you?
100%, 100%. And then you also mentioned about marketing your business. So again, you know, how was that, and what lessons did you learn from that?
Well, I have to say, over the 20 years that I've been running Landlord Law, I think I've done more marketing courses than I have law courses. I now know my area of law very well, and I can sort of keep up to date with it by reading solicitors' blogs and reading the legislation and that. So I don't do an awful lot of legal training. I sort of train myself, but I've done an awful lot of work on marketing, because particularly if you're running a business through the internet, you do have to keep putting yourself out there. I mean, to start with, I think I did it through contacting the people that I already knew and telling them it was there. And I used to go to events. Anybody who asked me to write something for their blog or their website, I'd write it. That sort of thing, you know. Okay, and lovely. Being nice to people.
Thank you. So landlords,
Yeah.
what are their biggest challenges then at the moment? What are you finding most that you're hearing them from about?
I think a lot of landlords are worried about the tax situation. Now, I don't do tax. One of the things that I decided is that I'm going to stick to what I know. And I'm a solicitor, I'm a lawyer, so I stick to advising landlords on legal things. So I don't branch out into other areas. And tax is an area that I don't branch out into. So I can't give anybody tax or financial advice. I'm not regulated for financial advice. So I'm not allowed. So, but I do think that's something that worries landlords. And I think probably what landlords ought to do about it is that they should write to their MP, because the MPs do take note when people write. And the more people that write about things, particularly we've got an election coming up, the more likely
Yeah.
they are to sort of do something about it. So if you do feel strongly, write to your MP about it.
And actually, it's really interesting what you said. I've just literally come off LinkedIn and I've seen a post by Toby Martin, who's just spoken about he's had a meeting with his MP, and this has been ongoing for a while. And how at the start the MP was really, really frosty, and now the MP is getting to understand what landlords' needs are and the effect it's going to have on the private rental sector and to tenants if the government carries on with the legislation that they've been going down.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, there's this sort of, landlords are horrible myth, which is ridiculous. I mean, there are some horrible landlords. Obviously, there are some criminal landlords. And the reason that there are criminal landlords is not the fault of the other landlords. It's the fact that we don't have proper enforcement. I mean, if local authorities were properly funded and were able to crack down on the criminal landlords, then that would be good for everybody else, because then, the majority of landlords would be good landlords.
Yeah. Enforcement, and that doesn't seem to happen.
No, it doesn't. And I am concerned because there is this sort of negative landlord thing out there, which is very unfair. And if the government makes it too hostile for landlords don't have to be landlords. They can sell up and invest their money somewhere else. And if they do that, and if too many landlords do that, then that's going to be a big, big problem. I mean, I know the properties will still physically be there, but they won't be available to low-income families. So there won't be anywhere for them to live. And particularly as over the past sort of 30 years or so, practically, I think it's about a third to two-thirds of the social housing has been sold off under the right to buy, and they haven't replaced it. So it's very difficult for families to get social housing. And if there's going to be no private renting, where are people going to live? I mean, it's a real problem. I'm not sure that government or the Labour Party have really understood that. Although Keir Starmer's a clever chap, so hopefully he has. I mean, I think he told Lisa.
He was a lawyer as well, I believe.
Yeah, he was a barrister. I've got a feeling he told Lisa Nandy that, they were not going to bring in rent controls because that's going to really put landlords off. So they've confirmed that, because Lisa Nandy hasn't got that brief anymore, has she? So it's Angela Rayner. So I don't know what she's going to do. But they really need to be nice to landlords, because until there's more social housing, they need landlords, the private sector, to house people, not only, people who just want somewhere to live, but also the homeless, because local authorities haven't got anywhere to put homeless people.
And are you finding from your forums that a lot more landlords have either started to sell or are considering selling as a result of what you've just said?
Yeah, we have had people who are selling up. Yeah, we have. And some landlords, I think, are selling up everything. Some just selling a few. Some landlords aren't bothered. I mean, there's also the cost of living. I mean, landlords who own the property outright, it's less of a problem for them because they haven't got a mortgage to go up. And I think a lot of landlords do own properties without a mortgage. But if they own a property with a mortgage, that's a problem for them, because they can't, they've got to pay their mortgage, and that means they've got to put the rent up. But because it's very difficult for the tenants to afford that. particularly if they're on benefits. So there are a lot of problems around.
Okay, so there's a lot of legislation and law with lettings out there. Where do you find the most common things landlords are really struggling on when it comes to the law side?
Well, I suppose all of it, really. I think one of the problems is that some people think I'm a nice person, so I'm going to be a good landlord. And they don't realise that if you are a landlord, there's all this legislation you've got to comply with. Because a lot of people think that if they own a property and rent it out, it's an investment. They think of it as an investment, and they think about the return and, you know, the gearing and all of that financial stuff. I mean, that's true. But so far as local authorities, the enforcers and the government, yeah, you're an investor, but you're providing a consumer service. And consumer services are regulated. So there's regulations about the condition of the property. There's regulations about the deposit. In England, there's the whether you've got the right to rent things. There's some consumer legislation that a lot of landlords don't know an awful lot about. And I've got one of those mailings that I'm going out, the free mailings, that's going to be talking about consumer law. I was writing that one this morning. And that there is a lot of regulation, the gas regulations, for example, and the electricity regulations, and they're really, really important. And if you fail to comply with them, however nice a person you are, ignorance is no excuse. For example, the gas regulations are particularly important because gas can be an absolute killer. I mean, it's a really scary thing, gas. I've actually had gas removed from my house because it terrifies me so much, because, you know, it is one of the things, they call it the silent killer. And you do have to get the property inspected every year and the certificate handed out to the tenants. And if you don't do that, you can be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Another area that a lot of landlords seem to be confused about, and I think this is partly due to some of these property gurus who give very expensive classes about how you can earn a lot of money from renting property. And the model seems to be to get hold of a property and convert it and rent it out as an HMO. And I mean, I've never attended any of these training courses, so I don't know what they say, but I would imagine that they don't go into a huge amount of detail with the vast amount of regulation that applies to houses in multiple occupation. For example, there are additional management regulations that apply. Even if your property doesn't need an HMO license, you still need to comply with these management regulations and can be prosecuted and fined if you don't. And then for the larger HMOs, and in some areas for all HMOs or the smaller HMOs, and it depends on the local authority and what schemes they've got in place, you will need to apply for an HMO license. And you have to pay for that. So if you didn't take the license fee into account in all your financial obligations, you may find suddenly, if you suddenly find you have to get a license, you may find it will knock out your calculations. And you may not be making as big a profit as you think you're going to make. So you need to factor it in, and you need to go to the local authority, really, perhaps before you even buy the property, to find out what the situation is. So you need to apply for a license. As a condition of granting a license, local authorities will often require you to do works to the property, and this can be very expensive. If you rent out a property, an HMO property, and remember, it'll be an HMO property. You don't have to, you can't stop it being an HMO property if you've got a certain number of occupiers there who form what they call households. So if you've got two people who are unrelated, or rather three people who are unrelated, that will be an HMO. And you can't change that by giving them a joint and several tenancy agreement. That's just the way it is. If you don't get a license when your property is licensable, the fines can be very heavy. And in addition to that, your tenants can bring an application for a rent repayment order. And the award is anything up to 12 months worth of rent. Now, the amount that the first tier tribunal will actually award to your tenants may not be 12 months, and it depends whether they've been good tenants and whether they've paid the rent or not. But if you've got tenants who've paid the rent and have been good tenants, and you have flagrantly not applied for an HMO license, and you're renting a house in multiple occupation out, which is licensable, but not licensed, you could face a rent repayment application from your tenants, and a fairly chunky order could be made. And because your tenants can claim that by not paying the rent for a period of time, they're entitled to do that. So, you know, you do need to, you need to know what you're doing. So you need to do training. Particularly if you're thinking of renting as an HMO, you need to do training on the HMO rules and regulations. And we do training courses every now and again. They're all recorded, and some of the training courses that we've done are now available to my Landlord Law members. So Landlord Law members who are HMO landlords, we've got a huge amount of information on HMOs. So landlords who are in HMOs will find a lot of online training and guidance on that. But even if you're just going to be an ordinary landlord and rent to a family, you still need to know what you're doing, because ignorance of the law is no defense. So, you know, you really need to do some training and find out what your obligations are. And there are various organisations that do it. I mean, we do a lot of training. I give out a certain amount of stuff for free. If you go to the Landlord Law website and scroll down, you'll find what I call some trails for free, which will give you some free information. And we've got some top tips as well, which are free.
Good. Well, we'll come to that at the end, and I'll get you to let everybody know where they can get all those free tips. And also, I know you've got a big conference coming up in November as well that we'll chat about. And just got a couple of comments that have come in. So we've got Bergman Earls, I hope you're well, and I hope Stoke has started off well this season. So exactly what you were talking about has caused the current housing crisis in Ireland. Rent controls and punitive measures in place are pushing private landlords to sell up. Jeanette Squire, who's an exceptional letting agent in Hemel Hempstead. Thanks for watching, Jeanette. So landlords just need to make sure they use a good agent that can ensure that they are compliant. So
yeah, I mean, good agents are brilliant. You know, if you've got a good agent, that is fantastic. And I've known some fantastic agents who do a fantastic job for their landlords. And we've got quite a few who are members of Landlord Law. They tend to be the heaviest users of our members forum because they're asking me questions about things. And some of them use our documents because we've got a lot of documents. But if you're looking to choose an agency, you do have to be really careful, because there are some totally rubbish agents around. Because although in a way it is regulated, because agents now have to be a member of a property redress scheme and need to have client money protection, anybody can set up as a letting agent. There isn't any training requirement or qualification requirements. There was a working party chaired by Lord Best, which published a report, the Roper report, which I think came out in about 2018, which made various recommendations, which I know all good letting agents were really sort of on board with, because it would have knocked out all the cowboys. But nothing's happened about it. It's just sat there. It's one of the many since I started working in the private rented sector about 20 years ago, I have seen so many reports, including a very good Law Commission report, which have been completely ignored by the government. And, you know, they've ignored the Roper report. They've done nothing about it. So you do need to be very careful who you choose. So if an agent is regulated by ALA, that's quite a good sign, but not necessarily, because I understand that not all ALA's agents are as brilliant as the best of them. And, you know, having a sharp suit and a good office doesn't necessarily mean that an agency is a good agency. You need to talk to them. You need to check them out. You need to find out whether they've been trained. and what sort of training and qualifications they've got. So be aware that there are also some agencies that are either criminal themselves or are in league with criminals, because that's another thing you need to watch out for as a landlord. You need to watch out for the criminals, some of whom will want to convert your property into a cannabis farm. And you know, there are some signs for that, like people wanting to pay everything up front in cash and not wanting you to go around there. But you do need to watch out for that. And sometimes agents are either criminals themselves or hand in glove with the criminals who do that. So you need to be so careful who you use, because an agent is in a very powerful position, because they've got the right to let a property to a tenant without you knowing anything about it, and they can agree things with the tenants even if it's against your express instructions under agency law, because agents have got something that's called ostensible authority. So say, for example, you say to your letting agent, I don't want someone who's got a pet because my property isn't suitable for pets. And then you find that the agent has let the property to a tenant who's got a couple of cats. Well, you can't do anything about it, because that's the sort of thing that an agent is entitled to agree to. And the fact that you told them not to, well, the tenant doesn't know what you said to the agent. The only comeback you've got is making a complaint against the agent and maybe bringing a claim against them if the property is damaged by the pet, but you can't do anything about it. So agents are in a very powerful position. So it's so important that you check them out thoroughly before you trust them with your property, which is probably one of the most valuable things you own. It's cost you a lot of money, or if you're on a mortgage, it's still costing you a lot of money.
100%. So what about evictions and property inspections?
Property inspections are so important, and I'm absolutely horrified when I read about landlords who either, you know, just do a few inspections or don't do any inspections at all, because you really need to know what's happening in your property. I mean, for a start, if you've carefully if your property is in an area where there is no additional licensing, so your property will only be liable for licensing if there's more than 4 people there, and so you've carefully let your property to 4 people. So although it's an HMO, it's not a licensable HMO. If your tenants let a lodger in or have someone else living there, then it will become licensable. And if the local authority find out about this, they will expect you to license it, and they may prosecute you. So you really need to do regular inspections of your property to see if that's happened. And if it has, you need to get them to go. And if they don't go voluntarily, either evict them or apply for an injunction, which you probably get, by the way, because the judge will be on your side, assuming your tenancy agreement was properly drafted. So that's one thing you need to inspect properties for. You also need to inspect properties to make sure that the tenants are treating it properly, are not doing anything criminal there. In fact, if when you're renting a property, when you're interviewing applicants, if you say that you will always go around there 4 times a year, that's going to put off the criminals who are going to convert your property into a cannabis farm, because they won't want to rent a property where the landlord's going to go around there. They want a property where no one's going to go there. So it's important for that. And also, as a landlord, you've got the continuing obligation to rent a property that is in a condition that's fit for human habitation. So you've got to keep an eye on the condition of the property and make sure that it's in a proper condition, bearing in mind that if you let things drift, they're going to be more expensive to repair. So those are 3 big reasons why you need to do property inspections. And also, you know, you want to chat to your tenants. I mean, I've had landlords say to me that the only way they found out that their tenants were going to move out because they did a property inspection, the tenants told them. Otherwise, they might have just disappeared. So it is really, really important that you do that. Okay. And we've got a kit to help with that.
Lovely. Well, look, I'm very conscious of time now, so thank you very much. I can't believe how quickly half an hour has gone. It's absolutely...
Oh, gosh, yes, it has, isn't it?
absolutely flown by. So how do people get hold of you, Tessa? Tell us a little bit about the conference as well and what people can expect. And then I'll say thank you for your time.
Okay, well, you can always get me. Landlordlaw.co.uk is the website. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, so you can find me through there. But landlordlaw.co.uk is the website, and you can find out all about membership and have a look at our free services there. It's not actually a conference. It's a training workshop. It's online because we used to do in-person events, and we hope to do in-person events next year, but over COVID we started doing all online events. So it's a training webinar, and it's essential legal points for landlords, and I'm going to go through all the things that you need to know about if you're a new landlord, or maybe you're taking over a property from a letting agent, or just if you want to refresh your knowledge and bring yourself up to date. So that's there. If you go to the home page, there's a little grey box on the home page, and there's a link to it on there. And I'll put a banner up as well, and some other stuff so people can find it. But if you sign up to my mailing list, I send out a mailing every Tuesday. We called it Landlord Law Bulletin, and that's where I bring people up to date with the law and give links to all our new content. Every week, I give people access to a usually password protected area of landlord law, so you can go and have a look at something. And we have a video of the week. So that's how you can sort of keep up to date. Because if there's any big changes in the law, I'm going to tell you in the bulletin. So that'll keep you up to date. And you can sign up to that from the website. I mean, if you scroll right at the bottom, there's a bulletin sign up link, and there's a little box on the website.
Fantastic. Well, Tessa, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I'm incredibly grateful.
No
You've
problem.
definitely a better understanding of landlords and their needs and what to look out for. So I'm sure you've helped loads and loads of people. And thank you very much, and have a great afternoon. And
thank you everybody for coming along.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.